Geologists believed Earth's history was already written until they found these. Ancient towers carved by unknown forces, stones fused by temperatures hotter than any volcano, and formations that look less like natural structures and more like the remains of forgotten civilizations. Some are so bizarre that researchers still argue whether humans even existed when they were created. Join us and let's begin. Number 11. Stone Forest of Shilin. Trees don't grow here, they rise from the ground already formed from limestone. Near Kunming in Yunnan province, a 270-million-year-old seabed decided to become a forest of stone towers, some stretching 100 feet toward a sky they never needed. The process started underwater when marine organisms died and their calcium-rich remains accumulated in thick beds on the ocean floor. Tectonic forces lifted the entire region, exposing these limestone deposits to rain, which is limestone's worst enemy. Water seeped into every crack, slowly dissolving the stone along joint lines and bedding planes, leaving behind vertical pillars that resemble trees if trees were made of rock and stood frozen in time. The Yi people who live in the region have legends about this place, stories of lovers who transformed into stone rather than live apart, their forms joining the forest forever. UNESCO designated it a global geopark, recognizing that these formations represent one of the best examples of karst topography on Earth, where limestone landscapes create their own unique ecosystems. Narrow paths wind between the pillars, some so tight you have to turn sideways, others opening into clearings where the stone towers create natural amphitheaters. During certain festivals, locals gather in these spaces, their voices echoing off limestone walls that amplified sound long before humans discovered acoustics. The formations continue evolving as rain carves deeper, widening some passages while narrowing others, ensuring that the forest's layout shifts generation by generation. Birds nest in crevices, plants cling to any foothold they can find, and tourists wander through what feels like a maze designed by geology rather than human hands. Number 10. Bungle Bungle Ranges Striped Domes. Western Australia's Kimberley region hides formations that look soft as fabric but predate most life on land. The Bungle Bungles rise over 800 feet from the surrounding plain, their rounded domes wrapped in horizontal stripes that alternate between orange and dark gray with the regularity of a barcode. The orange bands come from iron and oxygen, rust essentially, oxidizing in the porous sandstone. The dark bands tell a different story. Cyanobacteria colonies that grew in layers, their biological activity creating protective crusts that prevent erosion and hold the softer rock together. Without these bacterial bands, the formations would have crumbled millions of years ago, making this a rare case where microorganisms preserve geological features through their metabolic byproducts. The sandstone and conglomerate here date back over 300 million years to when this region sat beneath a vast river system that deposited sediments in thick beds. Tectonic shifts tilted these beds and erosion carved them into the beehive shapes visible today, creating both the external domes and the hidden gorges that cut through the range's interior. Indigenous Australians knew about these formations for at least 40,000 years, but Western science didn't document them until an aerial survey in 1983, which seems impossible given their size and distinctive appearance. UNESCO added them to the World Heritage List, recognizing both their geological significance and their cultural importance to the traditional custodians who maintain spiritual connections to specific formations. The range is best viewed from above, where the striped pattern creates a visual rhythm across the landscape, or from within the gorges, where cathedral-like spaces form between towering walls. I'm going to ask you a simple question. Are you a naturally curious person? If you're watching, I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. This space is made for people like us. To ensure you're always part of this community and receive all our latest discoveries, you just need to do one thing: subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to stay connected with us. Okay, now that you're part of our Legion of the Curious, let's move on to the next item. Number 9. Reynisdrangar's Troll Pillars. Iceland's southern coast features stone spires that rise from the Atlantic like fingers pointing at storm clouds, and local folklore insists they were once living creatures. Near the village of Vik í Mýrdal, the Reynisdrangar stacks tower above black sand beaches, formed during the last ice age when volcanic eruptions beneath glaciers created massive lava flows that cooled rapidly in contact with ice. The quick cooling caused the lava to fracture into hexagonal basalt columns, the same geometric pattern that appears throughout Iceland wherever lava met ice or water. Ocean waves then took over, grinding away at the coastal cliffs, creating caves and isolated sea stacks as erosion separated pillars from the mainland. The legend claims these stacks were trolls attempting to drag ashore, but sunrise caught them before they could complete their task, turning them to stone mid-effort. Now part of Katla UNESCO Global Geopark, the formations remain under constant assault from North Atlantic storms that occasionally reshape the pillars or bring down sections of the nearby cliffs. During summer, puffins colonize the basalt ledges, their burrows dotting the rock faces while the birds fish in the surrounding waters. Winter brings violent storms that send waves crashing against the formations with force measured in tons per square meter, gradually reducing the pillars while exposing new sections of the coastal cliff. The black sand beach at the base contains magnetic minerals that can be collected with a simple magnet, evidence of the iron-rich basalt that composes both the beach and the sea stacks. Photographers and filmmakers are drawn to this location because the combination of black sand, white waves, and dark stone creates dramatic contrast that works in almost any lighting condition. The formation continues evolving as waves, wind, and weather carve new details while erasing old ones, making Reynisdrangar a snapshot of ongoing geological processes rather than a finished product. Number 8. Belogradchik Rock's Fortress Walls. Bulgaria's Balkan mountains hide formations that look like something melted and then froze mid-drep, red and gold spires towering up to 650 feet above valleys that echo with history and legend. The Belogradchik rocks began forming during the Permian period, when sand and gravel accumulated in a shallow sea, hardening into conglomerate and sandstone over millions of years. Tectonic uplift cracked the land into fault blocks, then rain and wind carved the exposed stone into towers, arches, and columns that locals named after the shapes they saw: the Madonna, the Horseman, the Schoolgirl. Each formation comes with its own legend involving lovers, monks, betrayals, and curses, stories that predate written history in this region. Roman walls still cling to some formations, incorporated into fortifications that later empires expanded, using natural stone towers as ready-made defensive positions. The fortress of Belogradchik integrates the rock formations into its walls, making it impossible to tell where geology ends and military architecture begins. Colors shift with the iron content in different layers, creating bands of rust red, orange, and gold that glow during sunrise and sunset. The rocks create their own ecosystem, with specific plant communities adapted to growing on vertical stone faces where soil never accumulates. UNESCO hasn't designated this site yet, but it appears on every shortlist because few places blend natural geology with human history so seamlessly. Hiking trails wind between formations, occasionally passing through natural arches or narrow gaps where the rock creates temporary shade. The area stays relatively quiet compared to Western European tourist sites, allowing visitors to experience the formations without fighting crowds for photos. Number 7. Antelope Canyon's Liquid Stone. Water doesn't care about your timeline. In northern Arizona, flash floods spent somewhere between 5 and 6 million years, turning cracks in Navajo sandstone into one of the most photographed corridors on Earth. Every violent surge carved deeper, smoothing walls into curves that look like frozen waves, creating passages where light performs daily shows that last mere minutes. The canyon exists in two personalities: Upper Antelope, where summer sunbeams drop straight down through narrow openings above, and Lower Antelope, a twisting descent requiring ladders and a tolerance for tight spaces. Both sections sit on Navajo Nation land, sacred ground where every tour requires a guide, because this beauty comes with lethal potential. August 12, 1997 proved exactly how dangerous when a sudden flood killed 11 hikers who had no warning, no escape, just water moving faster than panic. The walls here rise over 120 feet in places, their surfaces so smooth you'd think they were polished by hand rather than carved by debris-filled torrents that strike without pattern or mercy. Photographers wait for specific times when sunlight penetrates the openings above, illuminating dust particles in shafts that look supernatural but follow simple physics. The Navajo name is Tse Biganilini, the place where water runs through rocks, a description that captures both the formation process and the ongoing danger. These aren't static monuments, they're active geological features still being shaped by the same forces that created them, making every visit a snapshot of a work in progress that started before humans walked upright. Number 6. Rainbow Mountains of Dansia. Someone took a paintbrush to an entire mountain range and forgot to stop. In Gansu province, the hills don't just have color, they're built from it, layer by sedimentary layer deposited over 100 million years when this region sat underwater. Red sandstone came first, laid down by ancient rivers carrying iron-rich sediments that oxidized into rust-colored bands you can see from space. Then came the folding, when the Indian tectonic plate decided to crash into Asia, crumpling these horizontal layers into vertical waves frozen in stone. Rain and winds took over the finishing work, carving away softer materials and exposing the color spectrum trapped inside. Red from iron oxide, yellow from limonite, green from chlorite, even blue from copper compounds that rarely survive surface exposure. The result spans 200 square miles of geological psychedelia that UNESCO recognized in 2019, though locals knew about it for centuries. Each stripe represents a different environment, a different climate, a different era when this landscape sat at the bottom of lakes, rivers, or shallow seas. What you're seeing isn't paint or chemical treatment, it's Earth's layered memory exposed by the same tectonic violence that built the Himalayas. Scientists can read these bands like tree rings, identifying periods of drought, flood, volcanic activity, and climate shifts that happened when dinosaurs still dominated the planet. The park built viewing platforms at strategic points, but the formation extends far beyond tourist access, continuing into remote areas where erosion reveals new colors as older ones fade. Number 5. Cappadocia's Fairy Chimneys. 3 volcanoes decided to throw the biggest party central Turkey had ever seen, and the hangover lasted millions of years. The ash they spewed across the landscape didn't just settle, it transformed into something called tuff, a rock so soft you could carve it with basic tools. Wind became the sculptor nobody asked for, shaping these deposits into towers that stretch over 130 feet into the sky, each one crowned with a harder rock cap that protected the softer material below like a stone umbrella. The locals took one look at these natural skyscrapers and thought, free real estate, so they moved right in, hollowing out entire communities inside the rock itself. At Derinkuyu, someone had the wild idea to dig down 280 feet below ground, creating an underground city that could shelter 20,000 people along with their livestock, wine cellars, and ventilation systems that still work today. This wasn't just survival, it was architectural innovation using nature's framework. The Christian communities that followed turned these formations into churches, painting frescoes on walls that had been carved by wind before human hands ever touched them. What started as volcanic destruction became a testament to human adaptability, where fire created the canvas and time provided the tools. Every chimney tells a double story, one written by geology over millennia, another carved by humans seeking refuge from invaders, persecution, and the harsh Anatolian climate. The rock here is so responsive to erosion that new formations continue emerging while older ones crumble, making Cappadocia a living museum that never stops rewriting itself. Number 4. Trona Pinnacles, Desert Towers. 500 stone spires rise from a dry lakebed in California's Mojave Desert like tombstones for water that disappeared 10,000 years ago. The Trona Pinnacles formed underwater when Lake Searles covered this valley during the last ice age, fed by glacial runoff from the Sierra Nevada mountains. Calcium-rich groundwater met the lake's alkaline water and chemistry took over, creating tufa towers that grew upward from the lakebed like underwater stalagmites. Some towers reached 100 feet before the climate changed and the lake evaporated, leaving these formations exposed to desert air for the first time in their existence. Now they stand scattered across the former lakebed, weathered and hollow, their surfaces riddled with holes that once channeled water upward during formation. Filmmakers discovered them decades ago, using the alien landscape for everything from sci-fi films to car commercials because nowhere else on Earth looks quite like this. Scientists study the Trona Pinnacles to understand how tufa forms and what it reveals about past water chemistry, using these towers as records of Ice Age hydrology. Designated a National Natural Landmark in 1968, the site remains remote enough that you can spend hours there without seeing another person. The formations change color throughout the day as sun angle shifts, glowing orange at sunrise and deepening to gray-brown by evening. Occasional rainstorms hit the area, briefly transforming the dry lakebed into shallow pools that reflect the towers like the lake they formed in has returned for a visit. Number 3. Bisty Badlands Shifting Sculptures. New Mexico's Bisty Badlands cover 45,000 acres of terrain so alien that NASA uses similar formations to train Mars rover operators in recognizing geological features. Once the floor of an ancient inland sea, layers of mudstone, shale, and coal built up over millions of years before tectonic forces lifted them and erosion stripped everything down to the weird formations visible today. Hoodoos dominate the landscape, tall spires topped with cap rocks that protect softer stone below, creating mushroom shapes that defy balance until wind or rain finally knocks them over. These formations aren't permanent. Some disappear within months, while others persist for centuries, making every visit a snapshot of a landscape in constant flux. Beneath your boots lie dinosaur bones and crocodile fossils from when this desert was a swamp teeming with life, making the Badlands both a geological and paleontological treasure. The colors shift with the strata, from gray mudstone to rust-colored iron deposits to the black streaks where coal seams reach the surface. Rainstorms hit hard and fast here, carving new gullies and undermining formations that looked stable yesterday. Photographers arrive at dawn to catch the light raking across the formations at low angles, creating shadows that emphasize every curve and crack. No trails exist because the landscape changes too quickly for permanent paths, just open desert where you navigate by landmarks that might not exist on your next visit. The remoteness protects the area better than any fence could, keeping out everyone except those willing to hike miles through terrain that fights back. Number 2. Fingal's Caves Stone Cathedral. Scotland's island of Staffa hosts a cave that sings when the tide rolls in, its basalt columns creating acoustics so perfect that composer Felix Mendelssohn wrote an overture about it after visiting in 1829. The cave formed 60 million years ago from the same lava flow that created Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, proving that volcanic activity doesn't respect national borders. As the lava cooled, it cracked into hexagonal columns that wave erosion carved into a vaulted chamber 250 feet deep and 72 feet high at the entrance. The columns create natural organ pipes that resonate with specific frequencies, as waves compress air inside the cave, producing sounds that change with tide level and wave energy. Naturalist Joseph Banks documented the cave in the 1770s after locals showed him the formation they'd known about for generations, launching it into European artistic consciousness, where it influenced Romantic poets and painters. The cave gets its name from the Irish hero Fionn mac Cumaill, connecting it to the same legend associated with Giant's Causeway, despite 60 miles of ocean separating them. No human construction mars the interior, just raw basalt columns rising from water that reflect their geometric patterns. Boat tours circle Staffa during summer, allowing visitors to see inside without landing, though hardy tourists can disembark and walk into the cave along ledges when seas are calm. The acoustics work both ways, amplifying sounds from inside and bringing ocean rhythms deep into the formation, where water and stone create music older than human civilization. Number 1. The waves' frozen flow. Arizona and Utah share a border and a secret, a sandstone formation so surreal that only 64 people can see it per day, 48 through advance permits, and 16 through a lottery system that turns desperate. The waves started as massive sand dunes during the Jurassic period, around 190 million years ago, when this region sat near the equator in a desert that would make the Sahara look modest. Those dunes turned to stone through a process called lithification, where pressure and mineral cement transformed loose sand into solid rock. Then came the sculpting. Rare desert floods carved shallow troughs, and wind took over the detail work, creating curves, ripples, and ridges that make the stone look like it's mid-flow despite being completely solid. Different layers hardened at different rates, so erosion worked unevenly, creating the striations and undulating surfaces that photographers obsess over. The formation stayed relatively unknown until the late 20th century, when a few hikers stumbled across it and word spread through photography circles like wildfire. Now it's world famous, but the permit system protects it from the foot traffic that would destroy these delicate features within years. The colors shift with sun angle and time of day, transforming from pale orange to deep crimson as light rakes across the sculpted surfaces. No signs mark the location, no trails lead directly there, just GPS coordinates and the requirement that you know how to navigate, because search and rescue operations here cost thousands and don't always end well. This is geology as art installation, created without intention, protected by scarcity, admired by the lucky few who win the lottery or plan months ahead.
Still curious? Then don't stop now. The next mystery is already waiting for you. Just click the video on screen. I saved it just for you. See you there, curious one.